What's up, everyone? AJ Legend here, and welcome back to another review. This time, we're going to be covering From Dusk Till Dawn, directed by Robert Rodriguez and written by Quentin Tarantino. This movie also stars George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino, along with Harvey Keitel, Juliette Lewis, and a slew of other people. So, I'm going to try to make this review as short as I possibly can and give you my bare bones thoughts on From Dusk Till Dawn. Overall, I love From Dusk Till Dawn. This is what happens when you take the talents of Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino. You get a very unique movie. It starts off as something. It starts off as one thing, and then when it gets to that halfway point, it takes a complete 180 and ends up being something else. But what's so good about it is that you're never lost. It's not a. It could be a jarring turn at first if you're not into the movie once it starts. But if you're glued to the screen from that opening scene all the way to the end of this movie, then that 180 is going to flow. It's going to have a very easier flow for you. Now, for me, when I first saw this, I was taken aback at first. But after multiple viewings, I love it. And the reason why I love it is because I really like the characters in this movie. I like the performances in this movie. I like the overall screenwriting of this movie, the dialogue of this movie. George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino play these brothers called Richard and Seth Greco, and Clooney and Tarantino have a very underrated on-screen chemistry with one another. I really buy them as brothers, and I like the dynamics between them. you know, Seth Gecko, he's like this, he's a professional thief who will not kill you at random. He's more of a, he's got his morals. But on the other hand, you got Richie, who has no morals. The movie says he's a sex offender. It also implies that he is a rapist. There is a scene in this movie where the Geckos have a hostage. Seth goes up to get supplies. When he comes back, we find out that Richie had simply brutalized this woman to the point of being unrecognizable. So I like that contrast between that stark contrast between the two. We automatically get the type of person that Seth is, and we automatically get the type of person that Richie is. Like when we first meet them, we think that they're one and the same. But as the movie progresses, we find out they're not one and the same. Seth is the more sane of the group, while Richie is the psychopathic one of the group. But the one thing that maintains between those two is that brotherly bond. And no matter what kind of person Richie is, Seth will still look out for his brother. No matter how many arguments they have, no matter how many times they may threaten one another, that brotherly bond will still keep them together. And I like that stuff. I thought that stuff was handled very, very well from Robert Rodriguez, from the acting department, from the direction, and the overall screenwriting of them. We get on to a parallel family, which is the characters of Jacob, Kate, and Scott, played by Harvey Keitel, Juliette Lewis, and I forgot the other guy's name, but whatever. I'm sorry. But, we have the motorhome family, I call them. And they also have a good dynamic as well. Jacob is struggling with his faith because his wife has recently passed away. Now he has to raise pretty much his two kids on his own. We have the characters of Kate and Scott, who are also struggling with that, who are also having their own struggles with that. And when these two families, meet up together, it causes a lot of tension. But as the movie progresses, an underlying respect develops between the two families, so to speak. And particularly with Jacob and Seth, I think they have a very understated father-son relationship that I would have liked to have seen further expanded upon more. And I think that would have been actually really cool. And I think the heart of this movie should have been built more around Seth and Jacob's being both them being the quote unquote patriarchs of their respective families, the leader of their respective families, so to speak. I'd have liked to have seen more of a father-son bond develop between the two. Instead, we get more of an understated respect that grows throughout the course of the film, and we can clearly tell that Seth takes a liking to Jacob, and vice versa for Jacob. They have a lot of great lines in this movie, particularly when the shit hits the fan at the Tweety Twister and the vampires come out. Jacob tells Seth, "Look, we need you clean, we need you sober, we need you to not be drowning yourself in alcohol because we have a bigger problem right now." So that's Jacob looking to Seth, and then later on we have Seth get visibly upset with Jacob after he gets bitten by a vampire, and Seth is visually upset at the fact that Jacob got bit by a vampire. Again, that's very understated development between those two characters, but I thought was handled pretty cool, and I like them a lot. This movie, the special effects in this movie are all brilliant. They look fantastic. I like the overall look of the vampires. I like this demonic look that they got. It looks fantastic. I love the look of the Titty Twister. It's a very unique looking bar. It's gargantuan, and the inside of it is just like a madhouse. It looks fantastic. I love it. This movie has a slew of supporting characters that includes Fred Williamson and Tom Savini himself, and those two guys, they are hilarious. I like this little quirk that Fred Williams character has. He's trying to set up dominoes, and every time he tries to set him up, a stripper is constantly knocking him over with her dancing. It's hilarious. The character of Tom Savini plays a biker called Sex Machine, and that's all you need to know. He's called Sex Machine, but he also has a codpiece gun, so he stands out, and it's hilarious. Now, before I wrap it up, this movie has the greatest exotic dance ever put to screen. Selma Hayek, you are a god amongst women. If you have not seen the Selma Hayek exotic dance from Dusk Till Dawn, look that shit up on YouTube. It is a sight to see. It's beautiful. I love it. And I like how once that dance ends, Danny Trejo, who's in this movie, plays the bartender, pretty much stabs Richie in a wound, because at the beginning of the movie, Seth and Richie kind of like rob a liquor store and they get into a gunfight, and the guy who runs the liquor store shoots Richie through the hand. So when Richie gets stabbed in the hand and the blood comes, Selma Hayek, who is implied to be like the lead vampire, though your guess is as good as mine, she is or not, but she pretty much jumps on Richie, starts biting him and gnawing at him, and that's where the shit hits the fan and the vampire rumble starts. So it's good stuff. It's really good. This movie's full of good stuff. You know, I got my issues with it here and there, but overall, I think this is a very enjoyable movie. There's a lot more that I can talk about, but I just wanted to give you my basic thoughts on it, because overall, I really enjoy From Dusk Till Dawn. From a production standpoint, this movie looks great. From an acting standpoint, everyone puts on their A game. You know, Cheech Marin is in this movie. He plays three different characters. That man alone should earn your respect, because he's got to play three different characters. He's got to give them all three distinct personalities, and it doesn't matter if they're not that big roles. It's the fact that he plays a borderline patrolsman. Then he plays the MC at the Titty Twister, which he was hysterical as the MC. Then he plays a guy called Carlos, who is a friend of Richie and Seth, who was also hysterical unto himself. So Cheech Marin, to me, is the unsung MVP of memorable scenes and lines in this movie. I thought he was hilarious. And I like a lot of the emotional beats this movie has. You know, I like when Richie dies. You know, Seth, feels reluctant to want to do the kill shot. You know, I love the scene when Jacob and Scott die, and Kate has to make that sacrifice. Well, first Scott has to kill his dad, then Kate has to kill her brother. It's all really well handled, really good stuff. And throughout it, I like the I like the relationship that develops between these two families all throughout the movie as well. You know, starts off tumultuous, then that mutual respect starts to blossom between the two, and then they ultimately become friends in a way without actually having to say it, with the exception of just one scene, but that was done in a way for them to stay at the Titty Twister, which again I thought was actually really well handled, really well done. So yeah, I'm just rambling on at this point, ramblers. So yeah, overall, I'm gonna give From Dusk Till Dawn a solid 8 out of 10. I love this movie. I think it's great. I like how it subverts expectations, but it never loses you as an audience member. It just gets better. Again, Robert Rodriguez, fantastic behind the director's chair. Quentin Tarantino, once again, writing a solid script with interesting characters that you can't take your eyes off, with great dialogue. Awesome special effects, a great cast, all give you a solid, fun vampire movie. 8 out of 10 is my final grade From Dusk Till Dawn. If you like this movie, let me know in the comment sections down below. If you hate it, also let me know in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.